Hi everyone, Metalthany Meltdown Tano here, the internet's drunkest music nerd, and it's time for a review of every single Voivod album from Voivod. That's right, guys, gals, and non-binary pals, the rumors are true, the time has come. Uncle Melty has shaved his head, and you know what? He kind of likes it. The feel of it, the look of it. His wife, Anna, thinks it's pretty punk and cool. It was time, frankly. I'd been wanting to do something drastic with my hair for a bit. Been wanting to kind of repair and regrow my hair. And realistically, shaving my head was the best way to do it because there was a lot of dead hair and my hairline was starting to get a little fucked. Plus, everyone who hates this channel kept telling me to shave my fucking head and that I'm a fucking diet Anthony Fantano, so I also figured, fuck it, let's embrace the fucking memes. Let's go for it. I'm gonna go see my parents at like a barbecue next week, and I haven't told them that I've shaved my head, and I'm very, very interested to see their reaction. My dad actually does follow the Metal Meltdown, so it'll be especially interesting if this is how he finds out. Hi, Dad. Look at your boy. All grown up. Looking like fucking punk rock Professor Xavier. Alright, let's talk about Voivod. That's the actual reason we're here today. We're here specifically to review every single studio album from Voivod. Legendary, iconic, French-Canadian, sci-fi, progressive, avant-garde, thrash metal crew. A lot of y'all have been asking for this for a very long time. We did a poll on the Metal Meltdown not too long ago. You overwhelmingly voted yes for reviewing every Voivod album video. As per the norm, we are not interested in EPs, demos, live albums, or compilations, or anything released by any kind of side project. I am looking specifically at the 15 studio albums that Voivod has made. I will be talking about them in order of release, giving each a score out of 5, 0 being the worst, 5 being the best. With that out of the way, let's officially kick things off with War and Pain, the band's official debut studio album, released in August 1984. Via Metal Blade, Banzai, and Roadrunner Records. This is Voivod at their most ugly and primitive, and I mean that in a good way. Like, a lot of the more progressive and unorthodox and jagged and angular elements that would later define Voivod, they're not really found here. I mean, it's scuzzy and weird, but more in like an extreme metal punk rock kind of way, as opposed to like a progressive avant-garde metal kind of way. It has a lot of momentum and energy, and it's very visceral and raw. It kind of feels like the erratic, edgy counterpart to something like Kill 'Em All from Metallica. Like, it has that same kind of feel and vibe, but it's just way more unhinged. And I personally really love that. The songs themselves maybe aren't the most memorable within the landscape of, like, the 80s, like, speed metal, thrash metal scene, but they're super fun to listen to. They have a lot of fucking energy and attitude. Feeling a very strong 3.5 out of 5, leaning towards a 4 out of 5. A really fun, classic, like, underground, speedy punk metal record. Next up, we have Roar, released in March of 1986 via Combat Noise, Noise International, and Banzai. This is absolutely a direct continuation of War and Pain to the extent where you can probably copy and paste a lot of what I said about War and Pain and apply it here, and it still works. Very raw, very ugly, very primitive, very visceral. Still really fun, though. Still packed with a lot of really cool songs. Where I would say that War and Pain has an advantage over Roar is in the overall sound of the record. Like, Roar feels quieter, almost muted, in comparison to War and Pain, which just kind of leaped right out of your speakers. I mean, it's not a massive problem. It's something that can be very easily fixed by just kind of turning up the volume on your speakers or whatever. But it is something I noticed, and something I did find a little bit odd. Love the bluntness of a lot of these songs, like Thrashing Rage, To the Death, Fuck Off and Die. Feeling a 3.5 out of 5 on this one as well. I really don't have much more to say. If you like War and Pain, you're very likely to like this as well. Next up, we have Killing Technology, released in April 1987 via Combat Noise, Noise International, and Cobra Records, and we have arrived at, in my opinion, Voivod's most exciting album, their most powerful album, and definitely my favorite from Voivod. I have gushed about this album on many an occasion. My thoughts and feelings about Voivod, and specifically this album from Voivod, are extremely well documented, to the point where I don't really feel I need to say much, but since we're here, let's do so. This is where Voivod is noticeably getting way heavier and way weirder. At this point, the band is primarily listening to a lot of hardcore punk and a lot of progressive rock as well, and the only thrash and speed metal they're still listening to is Creator and Motorhead. They're embracing the sci-fi aesthetic and tone and imagery. They're throwing in all kinds of weird, jagged rhythms and strange guitar tones and dissonant soundscapes. This record is unpredictable, it is incredibly violent, it is incredibly powerful, and just an absolutely badass display of, progressive, weird thrash metal. I would dare even argue a masterpiece? Dare I argue a perfect record? Perhaps I do. It's hard not to argue that, in my opinion, after listening to stuff like the title track, like Tornado, Forgotten in Space, Order of the Blackguards, This Is Not an Exercise. The technicality and the musicianship here is incredible. The intensity, the speed, the brutality, unmatched by other bands of this era, in my opinion. Everyone is showing off here, getting better and better at their craft. With Snake especially, I love some of those high screeches he does. I love some of those weird vocoded vocals as well. Yeah, I love this fucking record. Easy 5 out of 5 for me. I think it's perfect. I don't care if I do end up being in the minority on this one, but I don't think I will be. I really, really don't think I will be. One of the best thrash metal records ever made, an all-time favorite record. Holy shit, if you haven't listened to this thing somehow already, do so immediately. Please and thank you. You won't regret it. Next up, we have Dimension Atros, released June 1988 via Maze and Noise. With this record, we're seeing Voivod start to kind of lean away from thrash metal and lean further into the sci-fi and progressive metal elements established on Killing Technology. I remember being a stubborn teenager and not really liking this era of Voivod because it was leaning away from thrash metal, but with time, this album and others that we're about to talk about from Voivod from this area really grew on me. Because this is where Voivod really starts to flex and show off. Their love of prog rock and prog metal is really starting to shine through on these records, and it's inspiring them to make choices that they otherwise would not have made. They're officially doing a concept album here with their kind of mascot Korgel and just kind of exploring all the weird little things that he does, I guess. The production is weirder, the vocals are weirder, the music is weirder as well. Piggy really starting to embrace more unorthodox rhythms and styles of writing here. Honestly, even still to this day, there are little things throughout the album that I'm only now discovering and figuring out, or even really fully appreciating. This record really does age like a fine wine. It just gets better and bolder, and it feels and tastes better with time. I have always found that the cover of the Batman TV show theme was a little tacked on, it was just unnecessary and really goofy and dumb. But everything else on the record, from Chaos Mongers to Tribal Convictions to Brain Scans, Psychic Vacuum, Cosmic Drama, they're all fantastic fucking songs. For me, this is a 4.5 out of 5, another classic record from Voivod. Definitely check it out if you have not already, and if you're not loving it right away, don't worry. Just give it time. Be patient. Trust me, it's worth it. Next up, we have Nothingface, released in October 1989 via Mechanic MCA and Noise. This is where Voivod completely embraces progressive rock and progressive metal. There's a lot happening on this record that you can trace back directly to King Crimson and Genesis and Gentle Giant and Pink Floyd, though admittedly still weirder, more angular, more erratic. A lot of different textures and soundscapes, a lot of weird progressions, a lot of weird vocal and guitar tones. Interestingly, too, there are a lot of riffs on this album that are inspired by, and in a way are interpolations of, Igor Stravinsky's The Rites of Spring. And that, in a way, almost brings in a demented neoclassical kind of feel, specifically with a lot of the guitar work. On that note, we have to highlight Piggy specifically. This is some of the best guitar work of his entire career. For the record, everyone doing great. Congratulations, love you, Voivod. But Voivod, this is his moment. This is very much his record. He owns this fucking thing. Always love the way the record opens with The Unknown Knows, the title track, Nothingface. Love the cover of Astronomy Domain. Missing Sequence, Sub Effect, X-Ray Mirror, all fantastic, unpredictable, like avant-garde prog metal roller coasters. Another very strong 4.5 out of 5 for me. This record, much like Dimension Etros, I feel just gets better and better with time, like a great red wine. I would also say this record is more immediate than Dimension Etros as well, so if that record still somehow doesn't do it for you, still give this a shot. It'll sink in better and easier. Next up, we have Angel Rat, released in November 1991 via Mechanic and MCA. For a lot of people, this is kind of the cutoff point for Voivod. It's the 90s, they've gone alternative, blah 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 blah, all the same excuses you hear for anyone talking shit about any metal band in the 90s. Granted, this isn't exactly Killing Technology or Nothingface levels of incredibleness and ambition and power, but I honestly think it is, in its own way, still a really good record. Yes, they're embracing more alternative rock and metal. Oh no, the horror. But also, you know, the progressive and even the psychedelic textures and ideals of previous albums remain intact. I like Nuage Fractal, for instance, with some of the shimmering guitars and those kind of alt-rock chord progressions. I like Panorama, which almost has the charge and momentum of like a classic Nawabum heavy metal banger, albeit with some weirder, darker shades. I like the title track Angel Rat and how like dreary and psychedelic it is. It almost predates shoegaze in some ways with its atmosphere and its mood and vibe. Some songs are definitely better than others, but honestly, for the most part, I do enjoy this record, and I would give it a solid 3.5 out of 5. I think it's good, arguably somewhat underrated. A hidden gem, perhaps, in the Voivod discography. Oh no, they went alternative. Like, get over it. It's a good record. Next up, we have The Outer Limits, released in August 1993 via Mechanic and MCA once again. Definitely a much more straightforward record from Voivod, their most straightforward to date. Even some of the alternative and psychedelic influences of Angel Rat have been toned down. But I don't know, man. Shoot me, I guess, because I still kind of like it. I like their cover of the Nile song. I like Le Pont Noir. I like Moonbeam Rider. I like Fix My Heart. It kind of feels like they're just having fun with this one, you know? They're leaning into like some of those classic metal influences. More so, I would say that this kind of feels like their take on like late 80s Iron Maiden. Maybe not quite as epic, and you know, it's definitely Voivod. I mean, Snake can't sing quite like Bruce Dickinson, that's obvious. But it does have that same kind of spirit, and it has some similar riffage, and I think it kind of works for Voivod. Not spectacular, and I do think it starts off stronger than it finishes, but I'm still feeling it. Fuck it, shoot me. I don't know. Not quite a 3.5 out of 5. I'm not quite as defensive of this as I am Angel Rat, but you know, an enthusiastic 3. Like a really enthusiastic 3. It's a nice Voivod when alternative by 90s. Again, shut the fuck up. It doesn't actually fucking matter. God damn. Next up, we have Negatron, released in November 1995 via Mausoleum, BMG, and Hypnotic Records, and I would argue this is another semi-underrated record from Voivod, honestly. Switching things up big time here, Voivod is now a three-piece with Eric Forrest on vocals and bass guitar. We're bringing in elements from industrial metal. Eric also has a more visceral kind of death metal vocal style. Think Fear Factory, but weirder, and you're kind of in the right ballpark, I guess. Honestly, I think it really works, too. It's such a ballsy and punishing record. So many, like, anguished, painful moments. Love the production. Love how thick and juicy those riffs are. I like how the band implements industrial and, like, groove metal across the record. I like how the band kind of reintroduces thrash metal through cuts like Reality. The closing number, DNA, Don't Know Anything, is kind of awesome in my opinion. I love how fucking noisy and unhinged it is. Yeah, honestly, I'm actually feeling a 4 out of 5 on this one. I think it's great. Shoot me! 90s Voivod doesn't suck! I don't know. Fuck it! I like it! Whatever! I know a lot of you really expected me to talk shit about 90s Voivod because it's not the old records or blah blah blah. There's good stuff here! Fucking hell! Next up, we have Phobos, released in August 1997 via Hypnotic and Slipdisc, and it's fine. Yeah, I think we've reached, like, the one 90s Voivod record that I'm not really that interested in defending. It's decent. There's a lot of cool stuff on here. Like, I like a lot of the progressions on here. I like a lot of the slow builds with a lot of those electronic and industrial elements and some of the scurried, like, classic Voivod riffage found here. But they've stripped away a lot of, like, the industrial metal, and a lot of the songs feel kind of aimless, and the record as a whole is far too long, clocking in at 66 minutes. It's just kind of lacking the energy, momentum, and even the ambition of the last couple of records, which I wouldn't describe as being, like, crazy ambitious regardless, but even so. This Voivod album just ends up feeling derivative of itself, like ideas that Voivod has already done before being reintroduced, but just not being as well executed. I do like the cover of 21st Century Schizoid Man, and I can't help but wonder why it took this long for Voivod to cover this specific song. But also, it's a bonus track, so yeah. Yeah, solid 2.5 out of 5. It's okay. It's not my favorite. Don't hate it, but definitely a big step down from the last couple of records. Next up, we have a self-titled album released in March 2003 via Victor Entertainment and Chop House Surf Dog, and we have arrived at what is, in my opinion, Voivod's worst album. In theory, this should have been a hit. Snake is back. Jason Newsted, who at this point was fresh out of Metallica, also now joining the band. In theory, this should have brought Voivod roaring back to life. In theory, it should have seen them doing all kinds of new and crazy shit. And instead, they made essentially a dad metal record. Like, just very straightforward, like, hard rock, heavy metal, and yikes. It's just kind of boring. There aren't a lot of twists and turns to really speak of here. It's a very basic record, and it's honestly, like, not even that fun. It feels like Motorhead doing, like, a really bad groove metal record. It sounds like a bunch of guys who grew up listening to Voivod, and then being like, well, okay, but it's 2003, so how do we make this hip and relevant? How do we make this fit in with the fucking butt rock era of the 2000s? And it's also 65 minutes long, and it fucking does not need to be. It ends up feeling way longer than Phobos, simply because it is just way more basic and way more boring. Even Snake doesn't really sound like that invested or excited in this material. He's just kind of like sleepwalking through this. Like, he's just kind of phoning it in, you know? Yeah, I'm feeling a 1.5 out of 5 on this. It sucks. It's really lame. And I think Voivod to some extent agrees, because this is one of their only full-length studio albums that you can't find on streaming services right now. Like, I had to look this up on YouTube. I couldn't get it on Spotify. Next up, we have Caters, released in July 2006 via Victor Entertainment, The End, and Nuclear Blast Records. And it's an improvement, I guess. Yeah, I still kind of feel like we're in Voivod's dad metal phase, but this is, I think, a much more enthusiastic record with better performances and some more, like, engaging songcraft. Like, songs like Mr. Clean, Polaroids, Dog Nation, you know, they have some spunk, they have some spice, they have a little bit of an alt-rock underbelly to them that harkens to a bit of the weirdness that I used to hear from Voivod. So that's something, I guess. It definitely feels like Piggy specifically is, like, way more into this material, which makes sense in retrospect because he died before this album was released. And basically, before he died, Freddie Mercury style just locked himself in a studio and tried to crap out as much material as possible, so much so that the next album as well is made up of his posthumous material. Would I have loved for Piggy in his final moments to revisit the glory days of records like Killing Technology, Dimension Atros, Nothingface? Absolutely, but you know what? I will take a much more spirited performance like Kator's over, like, Voivod and Phobos, where it really did feel like we were just phoning it in. I'm feeling a 2.5 out of 5 on this. It's okay. Yeah. Better than the self-titled. There you go. Next up, we have Infini, released in June 2009 via Victor Entertainment, Nuclear Blast Records, and Relapse Records. It is the band's last album with Jason Newsted on bass. Aside from that, copy and paste everything I just said about Caters. Literally everything. It's all material that Piggy kind of crapped out before he died. The rest of the band now feels somewhat disconnected without Piggy. It doesn't have as natural of a feel or flow. But I don't know, there's a couple cool songs on here, like Deaf with a VU is neat, Godphones is alright, Global Warning is alright. Yeah, 2.5 out of 5. Let's move on to more exciting tunes. Please and thank you. Yeah. Right now. Next up, we have Target Earth, released in January 2013 via Century Media and Avalon. And holy shit. Finally, Voivod sounds like Voivod? Holy shit. With this record, it really feels like Voivod sat down and they went, all right, what are we good at? What do we want to do? What do the fans want to hear? Like, they really thought about what Voivod should be going forward without Piggy, how they should honor his memory and his legacy. They brought in Daniel Mongrain, aka Chewy as he's now called, who previously was known for French-Canadian tech death crew Martyr. And he's an excellent choice in my opinion. On this record and on others that we're going to talk about, he has demonstrated an ability to emulate the Piggy style while bringing in his own ideas and his own influences. And I feel like Daniel, you know, in retrospect, he's the one that really lit a fire under Voivod's fucking ass with this record and with other records that we're about to talk about. Because, again, we're finally back to Voivod being Voivod. Like, this album feels like it could have been released just after Nothingface. Like, no beats skipped whatsoever. It's weird, it's angular, it's jagged, it's funky, so many cool textures and ideas, so many cool arrangements. Love stuff like Empathy for the Enemy, Mechanical Mind, the title track Target Earth. Love the very minimalistic and organic production too. Like, it does feel like relatively fresh and clear, but it also kind of feels like a band just kind of jamming the fuck out, you know? 4 out of 5 in my opinion. It's a return to form, thank God, but it's not great simply because it's just like the old records. It's also great because this band finally sounds really confident in themselves. They finally sound like really sure of what they want to do. Next up, we have The Wake, released in September 2018 via Century Media Records. Another great record. Dare I say, even another incredible record, expanding on everything Target Earth did so well, bringing in influences from across the Voivod discography into something sick, twisted, weird, a very like mind-bending, mind-melting assault of sci-fi, technical, avant-garde, progressive thrash metal consistently throughout. Snake expanding his vocal range. Daniel getting weirder with the guitar stuff now that he's like, you know, been fully accepted by the band, by the fans. There's just so many fantastic twists and turns and so many amazing fucking songs. Like, this record feels like a cross between Killing Technology, Dimension Hatros, and Nothingface. It's got the speed, it's got the intensity, it's got all those weirder, crazier, more unorthodox elements and ideas. Stuff like Obsolete Beings, The End of Dormancy, Orb Confusion, iConspiracy, Event Horizon. It ranks among some of Voivod's best material. Strong 4.5 out of 5 in my opinion, an incredible record. In theory, it does not or should not get better than this for modern Voivod. In execution though, it does, because this brings us to Synchro Anarchy, released in February of 2022, and I fucking adore this record. This is an amazing record for so many fucking reasons. On top of doing all the wonderful things that the aforementioned Target Earth and The Wake also do, this is Voivod's most organic and improvisational record as well. They really took the time to play around with a lot of different ideas and a lot of different melodies and textures and arrangements and progressions. Sonically, this thing is heavily inspired by an EP that the band did called The End of Dormancy, which was also recorded with the help of like a jazz ensemble at like a Montreal Jazz Fest. And they loved that experience so much that they wanted to kind of emulate that on this album, which is part of why this record is so clean and has such a natural live feel to it. It's also part of why this album does, as we mentioned before, have a bit more of an improvisational feel to it. There are some jazzy undertones, like Chewy is definitely been jamming some like jazz classics during the production of this record. And everyone just brings it, you know? Like the drums, the bass, vocals, guitar, production, everything works together so fucking well. Some of Voivod's best songs are honestly on this fucking album. Like Mind Clock still kind of freaks me out. I just kind of love how that record is arranged and how it plays out. Paranormalium, Planet Eaters, Holographic Feeling, Memory Failure, Quest for Nothing, all just absolutely fantastic fucking numbers. I did a review of this obviously last year, so we won't spend too much time really digging into this. I think I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 at the time. If I didn't, I'm about to right now because it's an incredible record. Honestly, dangerously close to a 5 at this point. Really, truly, seriously. Like, this is right up there with Killing Technology and Nothingface as being, like, one of my favorite Voivod records. And that is it! Voila! By popular demand, we finally did reviewing every Voivod album. Holy shit. Now it's your turn to tell me, what's your favorite Voivod album? What is your least favorite Voivod album? How would you score every album in their discography? How would you rank them? What's your, what are some of your favorite songs? Some of your least favorite songs? Did I get it right? Did I get it wrong? Please tell me. I would really like to know. Press this button to subscribe if you somehow have not already. Look, there's more videos here, potentially Voivod related. I don't know. Join us on Discord, follow me on TikTok, Instagram, Threads, @The Metal Meltdown, and as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.